Jared Kellnick was sent down on Monday. Plus, let's redraft the first round next on Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. Welcome into FBT in 5. As always, make sure to follow and stream us on Spotify. Today is Tuesday, June 8th. I am Frank Stanfield, joined by Chris Towers and prospect for the Seattle Mariners, Jared Kellnick. We were also excited for him to get called up this year. He has been sent back to AAA over his last 11 games. He was 0 for 37 with a 41% strikeout rate. Chris, your thoughts on Kellnick? Should you continue to hold him in redraft leagues?
Yeah, I think you probably should if you can afford it, but given the injury landscape, given the fact that there are, 57% more injuries as of today than there were at the same point in the 2019 season, and 7% more on the IL right now than at any point last season, you may not have the luxury of it. And the problem is I could see this being a 2 to 3 weeks sent down, get your head right kind of situation for Kelenic, because this is probably the first time that this guy's ever really failed at playing baseball. He never really did in the minors. He didn't, coming up through high school, I'm sure. So, it might just be hey, we want you to see a couple balls fall before we bring you back up. Or it could be hey, we're going to keep you down for the rest of the season. We're not playing for anything kind of thing. It's impossible to know. But yeah, I would try to hold him for now, but if you have to drop him, it's not the worst thing in the world.
Speaking of prospects struggling, Jackson Kawar made his debut on Monday against the Angels. He did not escape the first round. He allowed 3 hits, 4 earned runs, 2 walks. He had 3 wild pitches as well. 37 of 39 pitches were just his four-seam and his changeup. We know he has a really good changeup, but really just leaned on 2 pitches in this one. Chris, should we continue to hold on to Jackson Kawar? 51% rostered. I don't think you have to, but what do you think about him?
Yeah, you definitely don't have to, but he's going to make another start before the end of this week, I would assume. You might not have to make that decision until your waivers run next Sunday. Let's give him one more chance. This was a weird start. He couldn't get out of the first, wild pitches. Look, sometimes guys just have nerves in their first start, and you don't want to overreact to that. He's still a talented pitcher. If you did add him, I wouldn't necessarily be looking to drop him yet. Let's give him one more turn.
On the Full Length podcast, we actually redrafted the first 2 rounds. We're not going to get to 2 rounds today. We're only going to look at the first round. We did that with Andrea Arcadipani of NBC Sports Edge, and we'll look at the picks by 4s, right? And the first 4 picks here, Chris, drafting for the rest of this season: Ronald Acuna, Fernando Tatis, Trey Turner, and Jacob deGrom. Anything stand out there?
Yeah, in our Week 11 roundtable Q&A, I actually identified Acuna, Tatis, deGrom, and Garrett Cole as my top 4. So Turner sneaking in there was a little bit of a surprise, but we've seen a real breakout from him since the start of the 2020 season as a hitter. He's on like a 35 homer pace since the start of last season with his usual 30 steals. So it's hard to argue against a guy who is a legitimate 5 category contributor as the number 3 pick.
Yeah, Trey Turner has been great this year. Fernando Tatis, we talk about him quite a bit. He's averaging 4.9 fantasy points per game this year. Shoulder injury, be gone. It does not exist anymore. Picks 5 through 8 in the first round of this draft were Juan Soto, Mookie Betts, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and Garrett Cole. Chris, in particular, Juan Soto and Mookie Betts, 2 surefire first-round picks coming into this season who have struggled to this point. Do you feel confident in them turning things around rest of season?
Well, one of the things we talked about in the full episode was also just comparing. We're basically at the 60 game point of this season. That's how long 2020 was. And, we talked about guys like JD Martinez and Nick Castellanos, guys who struggled last season and who've been awesome this season. Juan Soto and Mookie Betts are going to be just fine. Sometimes a bad 60 games happens. I still think they're top 6 to 8 players in fantasy without much question.
Yeah, we're not used to seeing Vlad Jr. drafted this early either, but it's hard to argue.
That's going to be what happens next year if he keeps this up. If he's the best hitter in baseball, there's no way he's not a first-round pick next year.
Yep, 100%. Picks 9 through 12 in this first round: Jose Ramirez, Rafael Devers, Shane Bieber, and Shohei Ohtani. So 2 names in there that we're not used to seeing in the first round, Devers and Ohtani. Do you have a problem with it, Chris?
No, I don't know if I would take them in the first round, but Devers is one of the best hitters in baseball. The batting average hasn't really been there this season, but basically since the start of 2019, he's been a 35 homers with good average and tons of runs and RBI guy. There's a bad 2 weeks or so to start the 2020 season. Other than that, he's been outstanding. And Shohei Ohtani, I mean, is 12 too high? Is 12 too low? I can't answer that question, but it's one of the two. He's either way more valuable than that and he's a top 5 pick, or, something goes wrong the rest of the season and it doesn't happen. But right now, he's an elite hitter and pitcher, which is pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, Shohei Ohtani has been must-watch TV so far this season. You can check out the second round of that draft that we did on our full-length podcast as well. Speaking of which, for more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, you can listen to the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, your smart speakers, or anywhere else podcasts are found. And thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. If you enjoyed the pod, please leave a 5-star review on Apple. We'll be back again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye!